So. Frage, hast du was gegen Close-Ups?
Keine Ahnung, ich habe mir jetzt nicht im Spiegel geschaut. Das Wichtigste ist, dass die Haare schön sind.
Die Haare sind
Sind die Haare schön?
Du hast die Haare schön.
Hi, my name is Sebastian Lanser. I'm the drummer of Obscura and Panzerballett. For me, I came out of a musical family. My father is a guitar player. I got into playing drums when I was 5. My father is a blues fan and blues rock, R&B listener, and I got in touch with a lot of different music styles from early on. Actually, I picked up the drums for myself. I had guitar and piano before, but drums felt really natural for me. So I never thought at that age, I never thought about the background, what this instrument means, or what it's all about. But my father he bought me a drum set when I was 5, and I really got into the instrument. So I played 4 hours every day. He was a person, he picked me up to rehearsals from his bands, and I got to sit in. Later on, when I was 8, I got my first drum teacher, and I had a lot of things I liked at that age, because I liked listening to like Eric Clapton or even Miles Davis stuff, and then when I was a little bit older, I got into metal, because all my friends at that age, they were listening to Metallica and all that thrash metal stuff like Slayer and Testament. I got into that stuff because I liked the physical approach of it. And so I had my first metal bands, but I have to say I always liked the complex side of music. No matter what genre it was, I always liked the musicians that were able to create something special with their technique, with their musicianship, going musically deep into stuff that I couldn't understand at that age. So this side was always fascinating for me from early on. Doesn't matter what music is, it was.
Listening to you playing, I feel that you have a very methodical approach. Not so much the one you described when you started playing. I mean, I ended up at a similar taste that you have.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't start that way. I was enjoying Fear Factory's kick drums and the aggressiveness of Slayer, and I was thinking, how can I do this? It's so intriguing. I want to do the same. But there was my taste changed over the years, and so did my approach. And you love polyrhythms, so do I.
I got in touch with so different kinds of styles and played with so many different artists. I played with a classical percussionist, with orchestra, which is it's so different from what I do in Obscura. I mean, methodical. If you say methodical, it's there is always something that connects all those styles. I mean, if you, for Obscura example, for example, it is the music is it lives from composition. I mean, the music is very complex. The structure is really complex in every way, in every sense, that like the harmonic approach, but also the rhythmic approach. It's like composed to nearly 100%. So I get all my knowledge I have musical-wise. It goes into this composition, and I don't have a lot of space for improvisation, but there is still a little. But that's what I love about the classical approach, to compose stuff and to really get into deep, to have the chance to create something that's really complex in that sense. But I also like the improvisational thing. I have, Panzerballett, for example, is also composed to a high level, but there is also a lot of improvisation going on because there is this jazz background. Or we have a formula which we use to solo over. It doesn't matter if it's on a quintuplet or septuplet basis or something like that, but we have it comes from jazz, and we trying to speak the language, to understand that language and speak to each other and communicate in a spontaneous way. I also love this approach, and I play with this classical percussionist where I also learned a lot about like control and technique, and I got to play with people like Trilok Gurtu, which I'm a really big fan of, because I love the Indian or the South Indian rhythm system, like Konakol, if you know what I mean. It's a rhythmical language that's just so. It's just so incredible. It gets you really deep into the rhythm world, and it helped me a lot with Panzerballett and with Obscura. And it's hard for me to explain, but I get my inspiration from a lot of areas, musical areas.
Polyrhythms. The more complex it gets, the more stiff it can be. So I think it's very hard to make them really breathe. How did you work on that? Or how did you approach to make them more organic, as stupid?
I don't know. It's just sitting in my studio and practicing it 6 hours on a daily basis. So there's just one thing you shouldn't be afraid of sounding stiff, because actually that's what I mean. It's totally clear to me that polyrhythms sometimes can sound stiff, not only for me as a player, also for the listener, because he simply doesn't understand or hear the different layers. Or I don't know. Stiffness. It's not like you feel. It's very grounded. So that's a really hard point to get there. If you hear people like Virgil Donati, he developed it to a point where it's everything so grounded and smooth. But that, I think, comes with just doing it over and over and have a deep understanding for what you do and have the ear for the trained ear. You need to get there, and it's all with those physical things like foot technique and getting fast, or like these polyrhythms where you have to control your 4 limbs. You have to get an amount of repetition to being able to play it in a cool way.
Yeah, maybe it's no different than making a simple groove, because at first you even have to struggle with a simple groove. It's the same thing. And then when you really understand it, or you are grounded in that groove, as you said it, Then you add dynamics to it. Then you try to make it lay back and do the Bonham thing, or this is how you make the normal groove breathe. But in polyrhythms, it's probably the same, but you need way more time to make that happen.
Of course, you need, and I would also get one step further to I read these Zen books and the art of Zen, and like with these things. It's all about your focus and what do you focus on, and you can reach a point when you reach a certain point of, I call it meditation, where you have complete freedom. And where you're not concentrate on exactly what you're doing. This goes in 5 and it's going 13, and the foot ostinato is in whatever. So when you're not thinking on those things and being able to focus on your bandmates, whatever, or I try to not focus on myself at all while playing. That's actually the ultimate goal, and that's what's making me sound good. But it's hard. It's really hard to get there. So I have full understanding for, like people like trying those hard things, and maybe it doesn't like sound that round or that cool, because it's really, there are so many, you have to be comfortable on so many levels in order to do it. Actually, it's really hard to, if you think about it, it's really hard to talk about that stuff, how it works and how it has to happen, and it's not easy. I can't imagine nothing worse than not growing as a musician, and I like to develop in certain ways, though it's just one life and you have limited time. So I would love to be a great jazz player and do great improvisational solos. I would also like being the fastest drummer in the world, and I would like to do really complex polyrhythms, but you can do just what I learned over the years, that you can just do one thing really good in one time. So what I always like to do is focus on something. So when I came into Obscura years before, actually 2 years before, I thought to myself it would be really great to play in an extreme metal band, because I love the physical approach of drumming as well. I wanted to get my feet moving faster and develop different concepts to get to a higher speed. I always love to practice a lot. Like I practice like 6-8 hours, and still doing it when I have the time. And when I came into Obscura, I just did that. So the new album was ready. I went into the studio and got into practicing. So I practiced a lot and noticed that my body got worse and worse, because I simply was not aware that the physical approach is so different from what I did before. So moving your feet on 220 ppm for 16 bars or even 8 bars, I was not used to do it before. So I wanted to get to the point really quick, and I thought, my experience so far was that you can reach everything if you work hard on it enough. So if I stay in my room and do it over and over, I need the repetition. But what I did is basically destroying myself and hurting my ankles, and also my hands were fucked up. So I had to learn a new way to that there are no shortcuts in practice. for this type of things. If you want to play single strokes with your feet for on over 200 BPM, it takes years. It can take years. I mean, there are some people that do it right away, but if you want to really know what your feet are doing and really want to control them, it takes years to develop the technique too. So what I learned is, for Obscura at least, that I have to listen to my body when it says no, stop. So there were days that I had just 2 hours of practice because it was simply over. I couldn't do anymore. If I would have gone on, and it would
hurt yourself.
Yeah, and also not only that I hurt myself. It's also that the performance level. If I keep on doing the same motion over and over on that high speed, using all my muscles, the performance will be bad after some days. So I have to work with that. I have to accept that my body has a limit. And so what I try to do now is to get more headroom, doing different kind of sports besides of drumming, and of course there are different techniques like open close with the hands or finger technique, or using the wrist. With the feet, it will be I use a lot of swiveling with my feet when it comes to single strokes. I'm not that good with double strokes now, but I would like to achieve that at a certain point.
You see, I have so much trouble to get my old habits out of the way and not play with that much power, because I was used to kick the shit out of everything.
Yeah.
And as you said, 200 BPM, you can still do this for a couple of bars.
Yeah.
But then it's pretty much wrecking your body, and then you have to go to a motion that is more, for me personally, operating the instrument, not really playing it with the impact that the aggressive music is asks you or forces you to play. It's not, for me, it's not living anymore the idea of metal as I understand it, but it is more like it gets to that point, and this is so unenjoyable for me that I have trouble to focus to do it somehow else. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this is just me, and this is just the fun I have with the instrument. So
well, there are so many different approaches of doing. I think a good technique, no matter what music it is, the more control you have of what you're doing, is the better it is. And if you take the time and check things out slowly, and of course I play extreme metal, but I'm not aiming for being the loudest player. What I try to is get the movement correct, and the strength will come after some time, so it will get stronger. You should always go for a certain sound. I mean, you have ears, and I mean, if you want to have a good snare sound, a loud metal rim shot snare sound, you should go for it and should really control it. Same with blast beats. If you want to have a blast beat on a certain level or certain snare sound, you have it in your ear, and you're going there automatically. The only thing is it doesn't matter how you do it, and if you don't look at what you play, that makes a lot of trouble in this music, because you have to deal with a lot of technical stuff, and getting rid of these bad habits is actually a long way out. So if you have the time, you should really invest it. That's what I can say, because stress and a time pressure is nothing that really helps with these kind of things.
I recorded drums recently. I'm still not sure what works better for the final product. composing each and every drum fill and then play it exactly like it was written and programmed, or to have a framework and play different takes to see what's gonna happen. Sometimes there's something there it wasn't planned, and it's so much better than everything you programmed all the way. So I try to do both, actually. How do you treat this recording thing?
It really depends on what I'm recording. For example, when I record a new Obscura album, there's nearly everything composed. And I have to admit that I really like the approach of sitting there and just creating everything. So there is a classical approach behind the whole concept. So we put things together like a little puzzle. I mean, there are some parts that I here and there I try different stuff. Of course, if I support a guitar solo, for example, it doesn't have to be 100% composed. So I try to follow my feel at the time when I'm playing and listen and get into it. But for Obscura, it's pretty much the classical background. For me, it's like it's a little nerdy thing. I just love sitting there and try out new different rhythmical concepts. And if we, as you said before, we using polyrhythms, but also experimenting with different note values, like groups like quintuplets and seventuplets, even up to 15 tuplets divided into different groups and overlapping things. It's simply hard sometimes to do it in a spontaneous way, so it has to be composed. That's what I love so much about it, to get new stuff to deal with and new things that make my ear or make me a better listener and have better understanding of what I'm doing rhythmically. On the other hand, when I recorded the last Panzerballett album, for example, the Christmas album, there is so much fusion stuff going on in there, which was all improvised. There's no single note like I've written out. But of course the themes are really complex again, so I had to write it out in a way. It's not only me writing things out, like Jan is composing the music in a really calculated way. It's a kind of mathematical, and he likes to compose musical, so to say, with a ruler. But all the other things are open.
Once you give something to the community, it's no longer just yours if you put out an album, I would say. And fans come from all kinds of the spectrum. Some of them may not get your point or what you were actually intending to do. On the other hand, sometimes you don't know what you really do until somebody analyzes it for you. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with it when people get your stuff wrong or not your real intentions? How do you deal with it? Maybe with Panzerballett.
Wow, that's an interesting question. That's a really good question. I don't know. To be honest, I never cared about it. So because it sounds a little bit egoistic in a way, but it's the way I play music is always for myself. I do it for myself, and I do it to make me happy. It's my life. I mean, all drums is my everything, and so I just do it for myself. It's funny because it's different in every genre of music, because there are the jazz guys that seem to be a little bit more open, but as soon as it gets loud and brutal, they are not anymore. And there are the metalheads that enjoying like aggressive stuff, but as soon as it gets a little bit complex or like like polyrhythms is cool if it's a 3 against 4 or something, but if it's more than that, or if you even use like different note shapes, which are not as usual than normal 16th notes or 16th note triplets. So if you use 5 notes per beat or 7 or 9, it can be the musical thing in the world, but if you don't have the ears to get it, then people won't appreciate it in a way. I think so. When we play in a jazz club, and Panzerballett did a lot of shows in jazz clubs, people were enjoying the complex part of it, but not necessarily the aggressive part. And as far as you talk about the ideas of what you try to get out as an artist, or what you're working on, I think it's always cool to to bring a record out with your own style, where you hear a certain style of playing is one thing, and it's cool to have it. But if you want the people to understand what you're doing, you have to maybe. What I like is to use social medias for that kind of things, because I do a lot of small videos or small video tutorials, or even photos of like with sheet music, where I explain what I do. So I like to use that kind of stuff to explain a little what my idea behind that is, and I think you can hear it a little on the albums I play on. So
yeah, these questions come from a very solid point I've experienced with the show, because the intro is just the word drum talk, but it's in Morse code and transported into drum notes. So actually I play the word drum talk. It's not meant to be a groove. Actually it's a word. It could play your name, for example, or you could play it. It would sound like shit, but you can still play it with that method. But people don't get it. And they were like, there's a Steve Gadd video. Why is the intro so shitty? It's not grooving. And I was like, you can get the point. It's that. No, but you have no idea, blah, what you're doing. This is where the question comes from. So they have their own image of what I do. Yeah. So this is why the question was born.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think it's as far as I speak for myself, but I'm a really open-minded person, and I get my motivation and inspiration from a lot of different musical areas and artists and musicians. But I don't expect my audience to be that way. So it's. Some people appreciate it, some not, and I'm happy if people have ear for that stuff I do. I really appreciate it. Okay, Drum Talk, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and see you soon.